Gobeklitepe or gobeklitepe, Şanlıurfa, approximately 22 kilometers northeast of the city center, Öğrenci near the village. 1. Located in the world's oldest known cult as a group of buildings. 2. The common feature of these structures is that 10 to 12 obelisks in the shape of T are lined in a round plan and the walls are erected with stone walls. 2 higher obelisks are placed mutually in the center of this building. On most of these obelisks, human, hand and arm, various animal and abstract symbols are depicted by embossing or carving. 3. The motifs in question were used extensively to be an ornament in places. This composition is thought to mean a story, a narrative or a message. 4. Bull, wild boar, fox, snake, wild ducks and vulture are the most common motifs in animal motifs. 3. It is defined as a cult center, not a settlement. It is understood that the cult buildings here were built by the last groups of hunters close to agriculture and animal husbandry. 5. In other words, Göbeklitepe is an important cult center for hunter-gatherer groups with a highly developed and deepened belief system in the environment. 6. In this case, the earliest use of the region, it is suggested that the non-pottery Neolithic age (PPN), pre-pottery Neolithic, dates back to Phase A 9600 to 7300 BC, at least 11,600 years ago. 3. However, it is not possible to date the oldest activities in Göbeklitepe yet, but considering these monumental structures, it is believed that it has a history dating back to the Paleolithic age, dating back a few millennia to Epipaleolithic. 2. 7. It is understood that the use of Göbeklitepe as a cult center continued until around 8000 BC, and was abandoned after these dates, not used for other or similar purposes. 8. All these and the monumental architecture unearthed during excavations make Göbeklitepe unique and special. In this context, it was included in the World Heritage Temporary List by UNESCO in 2011 and entered the permanent list in 2018. 9. These obelisks are interpreted as stylized human sculptures. Especially the human hand and arm motifs on the body of the D structure of the central obelisks eliminate any doubts about this issue. Therefore, the obelisk concept is used as an auxiliary concept that does not specify a function. Essentially, these obelisks are stylized sculptures that depict the human body in 3 dimensions. 10. Some sculptures and stones unearthed during the excavations here are exhibited in the Şanlıurfa Museum. 11th. Location and environment. The view of the plain, the elevation known as Göbeklitepe Visit 12, is a 15-meter high hill covering an area of 300 by 300 meters on a limestone plateau approximately 1 kilometer long due to the presence of a boat visited on the hill. In addition to the cult structures, the plateau has quarries and workshops. 7.13. The area where the finds were uncovered is a group of red soil elevations with a steep-edged flood bed on the west, extending in the northwest-southeast direction, with slight collapses between them, with a diameter of about 150 meters. The graves in the 2 highest hills were unearthed. 12. Looking at the north and east from the hill, the Taurus Mountains and Karaka Mountain skirts, when looking to the west, the mountain range separating the Şanlıurfa Plateau and the Euphrates Plain, and looking south, the Harran Plain until the Syrian border. With this location, Göbeklitepe can see a very large area and it can be seen from a very wide area. 7. This feature is likely to have an effect on choosing this place to build cult structures. On the other hand, it is clear that a high-quality stone source is needed for such monumental buildings. Limestone used in Göbeklitepe is a rather hard stone that is not found anywhere. Even today it is considered as the highest quality limestone in the region. Therefore, this must be one of the reasons for choosing Göbeklitepe Plateau. 14. It is suggested that T-shaped columns are found on the surface in the centers such as Yeni Mahalle, Karahan, Sefertepe and Hamzan Tepe in the Urfa region, and similar architectural elements were unearthed in the excavations in Navali Kori, so Göbeklitepe may be associated with these centers. It is also noted that the columns identified in these centers are smaller 1.5 to 2 meters than those unearthed at Göbeklitepe. 15. As a result, it is suggested that Göbeklitepe may not be the only belief center in the Urfa region and there are several other belief centers. 16. However, the important point at this point is that the smaller obelisks in other settlements are similar to the later layer of gobeklitepe. 4. Research and excavations. During excavations, gobeklitepe was discovered during the Southeastern Anatolia Prehistoric Research Project Prehistoric Research in Southeastern Anatolia survey conducted by Istanbul University and Chicago University in 1963. 12. A few ordinary and unnatural hills were covered with thousands of broken flint stones that were made by human hands. 17. Based on the finds collected from the surface of the mound during surveys, Beery's Cemetery Epipaleolithic and Willow Field 1 Paleolithic and Epipaleolithic, Willow Field 2 it was concluded that the region such as Pottery Neolithic could be one of the important settlements of the region, but no other study has been done. 12. The region was mentioned for the first time in the article Survey Work in Southeastern Anatolia by Peter Benedict, published in 1980. However, it has not been emphasized yet. 8. Later in 1994, another research was carried out in the region by Klaus Schmidt from Heidelberg University. The monumental characteristic of the site and its archaeological value accordingly only attracted attention at that time. 4. The excavations were initiated in 1995 after the survey conducted under the presidency of the Şanlıurfa Museum and under the scientific consultancy of Harald Hauptmann from Istanbul German Archaeology Institute (DI). The excavations were started immediately after, under the presidency of the Şanlıurfa Museum and under the scientific consultancy of Klaus Schmidt. Since 2007, the excavation work has been carried out with the stable excavation status of the Council of Ministers and again from the German Archaeology Institute. It was continued under the leadership of Klaus Schmidt. 18. The project of the Prehistoric Institute of German Heidelberg University has also joined the project. 12 detailed excavations carried out over the years. The Neolithic Revolution has provided reliable scientific results that will allow to rewrite the ground and its preparation. 4. Stratification with excavation works. 4 layers are given in gobeklitepe. The top layer I is surface fill. The other 3 layers. 2. Layer A, square building with obelisk 8000–9000 BC. The layer is dated to the Neolithic Age B phase without pottery. Obelisk and rectangular planned structures were unearthed. It was concluded that the structures in question were cult structures in the same way due to their similarities with the temple in Navali Kori. In Aslanlı Yapı, which is accepted as the typical structure of this layer, a lion relief is seen on 2 of the 4 obelisks. 18–19–2. Layer B, round, oval structures, evaluated as intermediate layer. The structures of this layer, which is dated as the Pottery Neolithic AGU transition phase, were built in a round or oval plan. 18–19–3. Layer, circular structures with obelisk 9000–10,000 BC. This lowest level layer dating to the Neolithic Age, a phase without pottery, is considered as the most important layer of gobeklitepe. 18–19. Klaus Schmidt, who has been heading excavations from the beginning, outlined the surface layer 2 and 3. It talks about the layer. According to Schmidt, 3. The layer is the older layer represented by T-shaped obelisks and round walls that contain them, and 2 obelisks placed higher and in the center of it. 2. The layer is represented by smaller scale structures with a rectangular plan, with 1 or 2 smaller obelisks, some with no obelisks. 3. The stratification as Pottery Neolithic A, 2. Placing the stratum in the early and middle phases of Pottery Neolithic B, 20. Schmidt, 3. It states that the layer should be dated to the 10th millennium BC and the newer layer to the 9th millennium BC. 21. However, 3. The radiocarbon dating of the material from the structures uncovered in the layer shows that these structures are not exactly contemporary with each other. The earliest date comes from Structure D. According to these data, Structure D was built in the middle of the 10th millennium BC and was abandoned at the end of the same millennium. The outer wall of Structure C appears to have been built later than Structure D, while Structure A appears to have been built after both. However, it is also acknowledged that more data is needed to fully confirm this assessment. 22. Finds architecture. During the excavations carried out in Göbekli Tepe, no architectural remains that could have been found could be reached. Instead, many monumental cult structures were unearthed. It is suggested that the obelisks used in the buildings were cut and processed as one piece from the rocky plateaus in the vicinity and brought to Göbekli Tepe. 23. Some have a height of 7 meters. 14. Geophysical studies show that nearly 300 obelisks have been used in the buildings in Göbekli Tepe, including those unearthed to date. 24. There are cut and unprocessed obelisks in the region, and there are a number of cavities and scrapings in the surrounding rocky plateaus, which cannot be understood for what purpose. 23. On the other hand, round and oval pits, the majority of which are collected in the western part of the plateau, are thought to be a kind of cistern made for collecting rainwater. While the round ones of these pits show a depth between 1.20 to 3.00 meters, the depth of those with an oval plan is 0.50 meters. 10. Environmental obelisks and stone wall. The obelisks are mostly built as walls with carved stones. There is a full set of stones on the inside of the wall. In the construction of the wall, fragments of broken obelisks or stones collected and processed from the vicinity were used. Between the stones, 2 cm thick slime mortar was used. 14. As the obelisks are stylized human sculptures, it can be said that these walls bring people together. 25. However, this feat caused serious problems. First of all, the abrasion caused by rainwater and wind damaged. On the other hand, it has created an easy-to-open area for various insects. 14. 3. Layer. Giving the most important finds. 3. In the layer, 4 structures were unearthed in the first year of excavations and named A, B, C and D in the later excavations. 3 more structures named E, F and G were discovered. 21. Geomagnetic measurements show that there are at least 20 monumental structures in this way. 19. Common architectural features were identified in these cult structures. The main body of the structures was created by erecting 10 to 12 obelisks of large size with a circular plan. The obelisks are combined with a wall and a bench made of processed stones. In this way, 2 walls are interwoven and a corridor is formed between them. In the center of the innermost circle there are 2 obelisks larger than each other. 19. 26. In this way, while the erected stones in the center are free, those around are partially buried in the wall and bench. 19. Obelisk with wild cattle, fox and pike reliefs. Diameters of structures C and D are 30 meters and structure B is 15 meters. Structure A has an oval plan and diameters are approximately 15 and 10 meters. 23. At the center of these 4 structures are 2 obelisks made of limestone with reliefs, which are 4 to 5 meters in height. The central obelisks of structure D are about 5.5 meters high. 27. Likewise, the obelisks on the inner and outer walls with reliefs are on the other side, but smaller in size, about 3 to 4 meters high. 23. The 2 obelisks in the centers are in the southeast direction in the structures other than the F structure, and the direction in the F structure is southwest. 28. This whole group of structures was deliberately and rapidly covered by a mass in the Neolithic age. This pile is limestone fragments, mostly smaller than punch. But there are also fragmented objects, such as stone tools made of lighter stones, grinding stones, which are obviously out of human hands. On the other hand, many broken animal horns and bones were used in this process. Most of the bones are defined as gazelles and wild cattle. Other animal bones are red deer, onager, wild boar. 29. The interesting thing is that human bones as well as animal bones are found in this filling. These are in small broken pieces, just like animal bones. Although the first thing that comes to mind is cannibalism, it seems more likely to be a burial practice. It is a tradition that the human body undergoes some special processes after death has been identified many times in the Near East of the Potless Neolithic age. 30. It is still unknown what purpose and thought the structures were covered with. 31. On the other hand, the buildings here have remained untouched by today thanks to this masonry filling. 19. In this respect, today's archaeology owes a lot to this masonry fill. However, the same filling poses 2 important difficulties in terms of archaeology. First of all, the loose material of the masonry filling created additional difficulties during excavation work. 32. The main challenge is the concern that the results of radiocarbon dating can be misleading. Because while this filling is being thrown, it seems possible that newer parts will be lower and older parts will be higher. 33. A pit of about 10 meters in diameter in C structure has been known since the beginning of the excavations. In the excavations in this structure, it was found that the pit was made to open the center obelisks, and then to disassemble these obelisks, and this goal has been reached to the extent that it is not completely disassembled. 34, 35 So much so that with the strong strokes made to open the pit, the upper part of the eastern obelisk was dismantled and dispersed around. However, the trunk remained in place. Nevertheless, it is observed that the relief bull figure in the body has dense ruptures with the effect of a large fire burned. By looking at the sherds found in the area, the Iron Age with the Bronze Age of this pit, it is claimed that it was opened in a period between 35. The bases of these cult structures, excluding the C, D and E structures, which were excavated by excavations, were not constructed with the terrazzo technique. 36 As seen in the cult structures dating to the non-pottery Neolithic age in the southeastern Anatolia region. Their bases are obtained by smooth processing of the bedrock. In other structures, the base is made of slaked lime with concrete hardness, polished with terrazzo technique. 37. The central obelisks in the C structure were placed in 50 cm plinth cavities drilled in the bedrock by squeezing them around with small stones and slime. 38. In structure D, the plinths of the central obelisks are 15 cm. 39. Structure C has a different structure than others. An entrance section extending outwards is seen in the south-facing entrance section. It has the appearance of a dromos, which is defined as a rectangular planned entrance part in round planned buildings. 40. It is understood that 4 of these temples unearthed A, B, C and D are the oldest and were built approximately 12,000 years ago, approximately in the same period. 31. It is claimed that similar cult structures were built in Keonu, Halansemi and Navali Kori 1,000 years after these dates. Therefore, Göbekli looks before these settlements. 31. A obelisk. In some obelisks, humanoid arm and hand reliefs, especially on the D structure obelisks, are interpreted as representing the human body. Horizontal piece head, the vertical part represents the body. Essentially, these obelisks are stylized sculptures that depict the human body in 3 dimensions. 41. Both large surfaces are taken as sides and narrow surfaces as front and rear. 42. There is other evidence in the D obelisk of building D, Dicolitas 18 and Dicolitas 31, that they symbolize the human. Both obelisks have open reliefs with arches under the arms. Belt buckles are also machined. Also on these arches are embroidered downward representing a loincloth from fox fur. 43. However, in all obelisks, there is not any element that will indicate gender in the way he stylized people. It is clear that the lowest level was sufficient in symbolizing. 44. Structure D. Although the center obelisks seem quite detailed, the aforementioned loincloth covers the gender. However, as the crow flies, about 48 kilometers 45 Navali Kori basis that all men are arched clay figurines found in excavations of these descriptions as suggested that the man was. 43. Often there are 2 bands of reliefs on the front face of the obelisk body and reliefs resembling a long garment. It is believed that these reliefs represent a special garment and are an important element of rituals, worn by certain individuals. In this context, it is suggested that the people represented by the center columns should have played an important role in these rituals. According to excavation head Klaus Schmidt, it is possible that the 2 obelisks in the center are twins or at least siblings, since this is a common theme in mythology. 44. An environmental obelisk. However, the most common motifs are not human, but wild animal motifs. Wild animals used in motifs show a wide variety and overlap with the fauna of the region. Felines, bulls, boars, foxes, cranes, ducks, vultures, hyenas, gazelles, wild donkeys, snakes, spiders and scorpions are some of them. 46. In structure A, the snake is mainly found in reliefs on obelisks. It is the most used among the 17 animal species in the descriptions in this structure. Often, snakes intertwined like nets are seen. 47. In Building B, the fox reliefs, especially the two foxes on the front face of the two obelisks in the center, are remarkable. Structure C, on the other hand, is the structure that focuses on wild boars. This situation exists not only in reliefs in obelisks, but also in sculptures made of stone. Most of the wild boar statues unearthed have been removed from this structure. However, no snake motif was used in the obelisks of this building. Only one snake relief is located on one of the horizontal stone slabs in the southern part. In Structure D, there is a wide variety of figures such as wild boars, wild oxen, gazelles, wild donkeys, cranes, storks, ibis, duck and a feline, but snakes and foxes are dominant. 48. The head of the excavation, Klaus Schmidt, argues that these animals, which we encounter as reliefs or sculptures, do not have to play an important role in people's daily lives, and that their purpose is based on a mythological expression. 49. On the other hand, a striking issue is that all mammals are depicted as males in all these animal motifs. 46. Females are almost never seen in both human and animal motifs. The motifs that have emerged to date have only one exception. A naked woman is depicted on a stone slab located between the obelisks defined as a lion column. 49. A very interesting example of reliefs on obelisks is the composition on obelisk 25. One of the reliefs is a stylized human relief depicted from the front. The head part of the figure, which is said to give a petrified image, is processed as a facial expression similar to the skull. When the pieces of the obelisk are put together, a small animal figure of 10 centimeters is located at a distance of 25 centimeters from the human motif. The four legs of the animal, which is understood to be a canine, have its tail raised up and curled towards the trunk. 50. 2. Layer 2. There are no circular buildings in the layer, instead of the rectangular buildings. However, 3. The use of T-shaped obelisks, one of the main architectural elements of the cult structures in the stratum, continued. The structures in this level are mostly cult structures. However, it is seen that obelisks decrease in number and decrease in size as the structures are getting smaller. 3. While the average height of the obelisks is 3.5 meters in the level 2. It is 1.5 meters in layer 14. Small finds. A large part of the small finds other than architecture, unearthed during excavations, are stone tools used by the workers here. Almost all of these are tools made of flint. Obsidian stone tools are the exception. 51. The source of the obsidian used in these devices is mostly seen as Bengal A, B and Galata, Cappadocia. 52. The stones used in these instruments are 500 kilometers away from Cappadocia, 250 kilometers away from Van Lake and 500 kilometers away from northeast Anatolia. 53. Apart from stone tools, materials carved from limestone and basalt were also recovered. These are mostly stone vessels, beads made of stone, small figurines, grinding stones and pestles. Flat axes from other small finds were made of nephritis and amphiolite, and jewelry made of serpentine. 51. Apart from stone tools, many sculptures have been removed. Some of them are ordinary-sized human heads made of limestone. Fractures suggest that they are detached from the main sculptures. 47. A remarkable find other than sculptures is a totem-like work unearthed during the 2011 excavations. It is 1.87 meters long and 38 centimeters wide. There are composite compositions and figures on the totem carved from limestone. 54. Other finds in the study of the extracted soil, wild wheat-type einkorn grains were found. No evidence of domesticated species of grain has yet been found. 55. Other plant remains found were only wild species of almonds and peanuts. 56. Findings from animal bones belong to many different animal species. The most common among them is the Tigris basin fauna such as gazelle, wild cattle and toy bird. Despite this diversity, there is no evidence of domestic species. 55. Human skull bone finds. Human bones were found to be fragmented. Studies in 2017 revealed that most of these bones belong to skull parts. 57. Morphological studies on bone fragments of human skull were able to separate bones belonging to 3 different individuals in these bone fragments. One of these 3 different individuals is likely to be a woman. The sex of the other 2 skulls has not been identified. The skulls belong to individuals aged 20 to 50 years. Taphonomic studies, on the other hand, showed that 4 different processes were performed on these skull bones, such as stripping, cutting, drilling and painting. When these bone pieces belonging to the human skull are assembled in accordance with the skull model, it has been revealed that they can be traced by hanging from above. 57-58. Ratings and comments. Until the excavations at Göbekli Tepe, the world of science has interpreted hunter-gatherer communities that are thought to be organized in small nomadic groups at very simple standards. However, architecture, large stone sculptures, symbolic motifs, and stylized animations, as a cult center, revealed in excavations, at least show that the communities in this region should have a highly sophisticated and versatile social structure. All these finds unearthed in Göbekli Tepe reveal the existence of organizational development, personal art skills and ritual impulses, a kind of understanding of art and search for bringing together crowded groups to carry out such activities. 8. In the light of these findings, the scientific world has to review the prevailing views on the socio-cultural structure of hunter-gatherer communities. The results obtained have led to changes in generally accepted views on symbolism. The traditional view of archaeology on this subject was that only the agricultural revolution, see Neolithic Revolution, provided communities with ample and safe food and time, so that they could develop a monumental architecture and rich symbolic expression. However, it is understood that those who built Göbekli Tepe are not agricultural communities. 59. The scientific community acknowledged that hunter-gatherer groups were small units, that they had to struggle to provide food every day, and that they could only save that day. 60. Building such cult structures and using these centers for their purposes necessitate attracting a large group of people from hunting and gathering for a while. 59. Excavation head Klaus Schmidt and his team think that at least 500 people must have worked to cut and process tons of obelisks from rocks, cover them for a half a kilometer, bring them to Göbekli Tepe and build structures. 60. First of all, these people need to be fed. Taking this into consideration, it is suggested that the need to provide the nutrients that these people need pushes these communities to explore agriculture. 59. 61. Indeed, 3. There are large amounts of animal bones in the pile of fillings used to cover the layer structures later. The number of animal bone fragments found exceeds 100,000. 24. This shows that a lot of meat is consumed in Göbekli Tepe. In addition to meeting the needs of the employees, this meat consumption may have met the needs of the people coming from the environment, even in feasts held in the rituals held here, and may even be considered used in sacrificial ceremonies. 24. This has undoubtedly led people to search for larger food sources. 6. All this finds evidence in the thesis of archaeologist Ian Hodder, that sociocultural changes occur before agriculture. 59. In this context, it has been questioned that in the light of the Göbekli Tepe finds, the core region of the Neolithic Revolution could be the southern skirts of the Taurus rather than Levant. 59. Another issue emphasized by archaeologists is how the highly complex organization required by the construction of these structures can be achieved by hunter-gatherer communities. Harald Hauptmann of the German Archaeology Institute claims that religious leaders lead this organization. In this case, it should be accepted that an elite stratification has occurred in these societies. 460. Klaus Schmidt also states that the communities that built Göbekli Tepe were a stratified society. 25. However, the dominant perspective in the scientific world until Göbekli Tepe was that complex religious practices and organization emerged only in communities where agriculture was the dominant livelihood. 60. However, Göbekli Tepe obliges this approach to be questioned. Indeed, it will be based on a deep-rooted belief history, by employing the workforce that will reveal such monumental structures from the hunter-gatherer groups in the environment. 61. On the other hand, there is a striking mastery especially in animal reliefs. In other words, a style that can be called art is seen. It is seen as works made by someone who knows that style. Therefore, it is obvious that this art style should have a long history. 62. On the other hand, similar to these symbols found in Göbekli but on a smaller scale, were discovered in archaeological excavations carried out in an area extending to northern Iraq and Syria. Based on these data, it is suggested that Göbekli Tepe was a center for cultural interaction in the Neolithic period. 4. Regulation and protection. Göbekli Tepe is under the protection of the Law No. 2863 on protection of cultural and natural heritage. It was registered as the first-degree archaeological site with the decision of the District Board Directorate of Diyarbakir Cultural Heritage Preservation dated 27 September 2005 and numbered 422-63. In the last few years of the excavation works carried out in Göbekli Tepe, works aimed at preserving and exhibiting the structures and the region as revealed were developed. 64. The walls and obelisks are tried to be protected by fabric, screened soil, wooden construction and wire mesh lines. 65. However, the threat of looting and external environmental conditions in the long run still requires special protection of the structures and archaeological sites there. As an answer to this requirement, the Global Heritage Fund has announced that in 2010, a multi-annual work program will be organized to protect Göbekli Tepe. The work in this direction the Republic of Turkey Ministry of Culture and Tourism it is envisaged to be carried out in cooperation with Şanlıurfa Municipality, German Archaeology Institute and German Research Fund. The aim of this initiative is to support the establishment of an adequate arrangement for the management of the structures and surroundings uncovered, to determine a suitable future protection plan, to make a protective cover to protect the works to be exhibited from the weather conditions and to make the necessary initiatives. 2. In this framework, it is planned to build the facilities, transportation lines and parking areas, visitor areas required for the project team, and to develop the tourism infrastructure in a broad sense as the situation requires. 66.